Hello everyone. I'm going to talk about the SR and ER programs, which are the new programs that are intended to replace the LMAP programs. These programs are quite interesting because they are endowed with much more flexibility and variety than the LMAP programs are, as you will see in a moment. So SR means sensory regulation and ER means executive regulations. And these programs are intended to be, as for the LMAP programs, actually complementary to a therapeutic activity or a pedagogical approach. These programs are intended to be achieved, to be applied without a listening test. As for the LMAP programs, the same idea. And they intended to satisfy the needs and expectations of a client while respecting a principle of precaution. So we have this principle of precaution, which is very important. And to satisfy this principle of precaution, several criteria have been applied regarding the type of filtering, the speed of gating, but also this is new, the contrast between channel 1 and channel 2. As you're going to see, the contrast is not the same. We're going to use contrast, pedagogical contrast, but we are going to use other contrasts. So this is a new element, the contrast between channel 1 and channel 2. So we have basically two families of programs, the SR program, the ER program, as I said before, two branches, and there's the possibility of passage from one branch to the other. You have in branch 1, in the SR program, you have three root programs called SR0, SR1, SR2. And you will see that these three roots program can be derived into 36 versions. And then you have the second family, the ER programs, that are endowed with 6 root programs, ER0 up to 5, ER0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the ER programs can be derived into 216 versions. So it's a big daddy now. A lot of things to do with all these programs. As I said before, the variability is much more important than with the LMAP programs. So two families, I repeat myself, SR family, ER family, and the possibility of passage between SR and ER. So in total, you have a lot of variation. You have 256 different programs as we are going to qualify. The SR programs are intended for young children, 2 years age old, 2 3 years old, persons with neurological conditions, epilepsy, cerebral palsy, strokes, Parkinson's disease, things like this. Also clients that are hypersensitive to sounds, and clients presenting sensory modulation disorders, clients with tinnitus, clients with dizziness. But also, it's a way to help you actually. It's another criteria. You can also apply these programs if you use the future new TED. SR part of new TED that does not exist now, but maybe in the future will exist. Who knows? So you will be able to use the SR part of the new TED, new version, and the criteria will be 44 items or more quoted between 4 and 10. So 44 items is 1/3 of the items because the SR part of a TED has 122 items. So it's another criteria you may want to apply as a criteria of selection between an SR and ER. And the ER programs can be applied in all other cases. So, to make it short, SR programs are intended for vulnerable people. Basically, the SR program, that's a bit of extension of the T programs, but with more details, actually. Okay? So you have like T-ish programs that are given by the SR. And then for the ER branch, the ER family, you have the rest. Much more qualification. Hello? So, let's talk about the SR and ER programs. So, with the SR, we have, as I said before, 3 root programs. With the SR, we have 3 root programs. With the ER, we have 6 root programs, 252 programs. It's a lot. Why? How come? What's the decomposition? So for the SR, you have SR0, SR1, SR2. So it's 3 programs. But you have actually 4 variants for each of these programs because you have an alternative version. It's the same programs, but the order has been is different. The order of the tracks has been permuted. Then you have a version without Gregorian chant, and then you have an alternative version, permuted and without Gregorian chant. So you see it's like 3 multiplied by 4, 12 possibilities. 12 possibilities. Okay? Now, out of these 12 possibilities, you have the possibility now, in level 1, with the new program manager, to choose the duration of a track. So you can choose a track duration 10 minutes, you can choose a track duration 15 minutes, or you can choose a track duration 20 minutes. So you see, if you multiply 12 by 3, you get 36 SR variations. So 36 SR variations in terms of the SR possibilities. For the ER, same idea of decomposition, except that once again you don't have 3 root programs, you have 6 root programs, once again from ER0 to ER5, but same idea. You have a root version, you have an alternative version, the order of the tracks has been permuted, you have a no Gregorian version, and you have an alternated no Gregorian version. So 6 multiplied by 4 equals 24. And once again, in terms of track duration, you have 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So 24 multiplied by 3 equals 72 programs. But now with the ER programs, you can use precision 180 or 60 because with the new program manager, the practitioner has the possibility to modify the values of the ER programs, the values of precision. So in total, 72 by 3 equals 216 ER programs. It's a lot of different possibilities, much more than for the ELMA programs, of course. And as I said before, in total, when you add up the possibilities of the SR plus and the possibilities of the ER, you get 252 programs. This is the idea. Here is a chart that is a summary of what I said. Okay, so you have here the ramification in terms of decomposition, SR, ER with all the possibilities. Now, what is the main point? The main point is the SR and ER programs are underpinned by the idea of the 3 zones of the listening test. It's very, very important. These programs have been built upon the notion of the 3 zones of listening. So what is this? The concept of the zones of listening comes from the listening test that you will see in level 2, but without a listening test, it's quite possible to use this construct of the 3 zones of listening. Okay, so you have a listening test that can be divided into 3 different areas, zones, each one corresponding to specific listening processes and their associated issues. So let's look at these 3 listening zones. You have 3 zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1 called the vestibular area, zone 2 called the communication area, zone 3 called the energy area. Each zone is endowed with 3 octaves, and the zones, they overlap with each other. So, and each zone has an influence on its neighbor. So 3 zones. Here you have a list, a chart that summarizes actually the three zones and their functions. Zone 1, vestibular area. Zone 2, communication. Zone 3, energy area. You will see that on the slides. It's very important that you should integrate. You can integrate this chart to understand the function of the three zones. For example, Zone 1 is involved in posture balance, coordination, rhythm, but also emotional regulation. Zone 2 is involved in communication, verbal discrimination. Zone 3 is involved in energy, cortical arousal, and things like this. You will see that on the chart. It's very qualified on the chart that you will get, of course, along with my presentation. So the first question before choosing a program is this: with this particular client, and according to the aims, to what extent should I work on Zone 1? To what extent should I work on Zone 2? To what extent should I work on Zone 3? It's very important because the free zone will serve as the guideline for understanding the recordings composing each program and therefore for choosing the appropriate program. So you see, everything is based on the idea of listening zone. It's a kind of guideline for you. Always, always, always refer to the listening zones. It's a very, very important concept. Up to now, this concept used to be seen in level 2. Now it's level 1 that we introduced this concept. It's very, very important for you to get the gist of it. And you will see it simplifies, drastically simplifies your ability to pick up a new program. Each program has a specific impact on one or several zones of listening, and as we'll see, will be defined by a specific profile of impact on each zone. The SR program definitely have more sensory motor aspect than the ER program, and as a result, they will always have a strong impact on Zone 1. Zone 1 is called the vestibular zone. As the name indicates, it's a zone that is involved in motor processes, if you wish, sensory motor integration, things like this. Okay. The profiler of a program is a direct expression of its musical composition, of course, and as a consequence, it reflects how the recordings it contains have an effect upon Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. So you understand the composition, you understand the impact, you understand the impact on Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, so you know what program to choose. Once again, always now, from now on, if you use this SR and ER program, always think in terms of zones of listening. This is going to be your guideline, not only for level 1, but also for level 2, for level 3, and for level 4 if you continue. Okay? It's very, very important to think like this now. It's a new way of thinking, but it's much, much more efficient for you, as you will see. So now, of course, we have to talk about the recordings composing the SR and ER programs and their impact on each zone. So let's do that. Okay? So, number one, you have programs that are composed of tracks. You have 56 tracks. You have 14 days, and each day you have 4 tracks. So yes, that's it. 14 multiplied by 4 equals 56. Yes, I'm good with that. So each program has 56 tracks. But as said before, you can vary the duration of a track. You can choose tracks of 10 minutes, tracks of 15 minutes, tracks of 20 minutes. Okay? And of course, you have musical tracks. Each track is given by a code that for some codes you know, some of them you don't know. I'm going to qualify that. Basically, now we have 4 types of music, actually maybe 5 types of music. We have the music of Mozart, MU. Yes, but now MU can be MU, but can also be SMU, SMU, means slow MU. Slow MU is the music of Mozart, the MU that has been slowed down slightly, 10%, okay, of decrease in the speed of the music. and it gives a very relaxing effect, okay, to people. It's a substitution to Gregorian chant when it's just impossible to use Gregorian chant in some specific cases. For example, in case of religious problems, I don't know, you work with Muslim populations and they don't want to listen to Gregorian chant because I don't know, feeling you want to convert them or something like this. Okay, so you don't do that, and you are going to use the program with no GC, but with SMU. So SMU is a substitution for Gregorian chant. Then you have Gregorian chant, of course, that you know. Then you also have waltz. You know waltz, VL, you know that. And a newcomer is march. Yes, now we are going to use, in the SR program, we are going to use marches. Very interesting type of music, very sensorimotor based music. So we have MU, we have slow MU, we have Gregorian chant, we have waltz, and we have march. So basically, let's say 5 types of different music. But these musics will be used with specific filtering, not systematically with full spectrum. This is one of the main ideas of the new programs, the SR programs, the ER program, the idea that full spectrum can be very overwhelming for people because there's a lot of stimulation through full spectrum because our recordings are endowed with a lot of energy. That's why most of the time we are going to use specific BPs, band pass, or specific HPs, high pass. And these BPs are quite interesting, as we are going to see. This is the idea. See, a BP, band pass, is going to target in priority such and such zone of listening. And a BP is 2 things. Remember your acoustic course in acoustics. A BP is 2 things. It's a range and it's a slope, combination of slopes. Okay, so we are going to play a lot with this, and more if you continue level 2, level 3, level 4, more and more, much more than before. So these musics, they pass through band pass or high pass, whatever, and from time to time, I said before, we are going to use specific settings for channel 1 and channel 2, meaning specific contrasts. And not only the pedagogical contrast that you all know, because this gating is the standard gating you have in all the programs. Okay, now we use something else. It's quite interesting. Because sometimes you want to limit the effect of contrast of gating, okay, to make the contrast more acceptable. Basically, it's, of course, what predominates is the pedagogical gatings that you know, but from time to time in the SR programs, which are more sensory-based programs, you will get some gatings that are not pedagogical, but softer. Anyway, you can't understand what I'm saying if you don't try on yourself, okay? Or if you don't try on yourself, if you don't explain by yourself, it's just gibberish, even with a slide. So, of course, for the 1000th time, you have to experience of yourself. If you don't experience of yourself, you don't know what you're talking about. Maybe you have the feeling that you know what you're talking about. You know nothing. Okay, so you have to really experience on yourself a lot, and experience on yourself a lot of programs. As a professional, it's just mandatory. The fact is that the police will not come to your home. There's no camera, tracking you. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. But the fact is your responsibility to try a lot on yourself. Okay, and you will see that if you experience the difference between a soft gating and the pedagogical gating, you will feel that the pedagogical gating is more like, quote, violent, drastic, more aggressive, and you will feel the contrast much more. So that's the idea. We're very, very vulnerable people. Once again, in the SR programs, we will use gatings that are softer and that present a contrast that is not so big. There's no low pass in these new programs, no low pass, no LP. Because the LP can actually lead to some disagreements, to some problems. You can have vestibular effects, negative effects on the vestibular system because it's too demanding, too much stimulation due to the presence of very low frequencies. So in these new programs, no low pass, just band passes and high passes, but no low pass. But it's not a problem because the low pass has been substituted by appropriate BPs. So theoretically, it's important for you to understand what is a low pass. But in these new programs, no more low pass, just BPs, band passes, and high Ps, HPs, high passes. That's all. Okay. So, what else can I say about this? Well, so I talked about the types of music, and now I have to talk about the filtering, as I said. Just one word in terms of the Talks-Up display. This is new. It's very nice now because on the screen of the Talks-Up you have all the information you need. You will see appearing delay precession. You will see appearing the type of filtering. You will see appearing the settings of the channel 1, channel 2. Everything is here at your disposal to understand the track in question. Okay. Here you have a slide called Impact of Settings. It's a very nice slide. I suggest you should take some time to review this slide because it's a good summary of everything in terms of settings. On this slide you have actually the parameters of filtering, HP, BP, with impact on zones. You have a parameter of channel setting, the impact of amplitude of gating, and you have, of course, the parameter of delay and precession, which gives the speed of gating, which is the impact on the contraction rate of the auditory muscle. So you have everything here. So take some time to review this slide. It's a very important slide, actually. Okay, so let's talk about the SR programs. So 5 points: the type of music, the filters, the channels, the speed of gating, and the profile of impact zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. The music. So I repeat myself, but it's quite important to be a bit redundant. In the SR, you have MU, music of Mozart. You have SMU, slow music of Mozart, that is a substitute for Gregorian chant, but it's not possible to use Gregorian chant. You have Gregorian chant, of course, when it's possible to use Gregorian chant. You have waltz, VL, waltz, and march. VL, march, emphasis on the vestibular work, of course. Difference is that VL is a 3 on 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and march is a type of 2 on 4 music, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the two types of music are very complementary to work on the vestibule. In all the SR program, which are once again sensory motor oriented programs, you will see a good proportion of VLs and marches. The filtering now. Okay, the filtering in total in the SR program you will have 13 different types of filtering. It's a lot. 13 types of filtering. And these filterings can be classified into 4 major categories. You have wide spectrum filters, number 1. You have low range oriented BPs. You have medium range oriented BPs. And you have HPs. So 4 types: wide spectrum, low range BPs, medium range BPs. BPs means band passes, and wide HPs. HPs means high pass. Okay. So this is the idea. Let's start with the first category, wide spectrum. Well, global regulation, that's the main idea. Wide spectrum will be used with MU. We work on 3 zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. It's global work of regulation. Basically, as you may guess, it's a kind of type of filtering that is kind of F-ish or T-ish, okay, if you refer to your old programs, that's the main idea, global regulation. You have here a very nice chart with the type of filtering, very visual. You will see full spectrum, a BP that ranges from 500 to 8,000, two variations, 24 decibel slope and 6 decibel slopes. Okay, so you have a very wide BP, 400, 8,000. What changes is the slope, 24 and 6. Then you have the low range BPs. You have different types. 4,500, 4,000, 500, 6,000. Used in March, used in VL. And you have also a specific BP, 800, 4,000 and 800, 6,000 for the SMU, slow music. It's a type of BP that is well adapted for SMU. Okay. Here, once again, the summary, the visual summary of these low BPs, 4 types. Then the medium BPs, 400, 4,000 with 24 decibel slope, 406,000 with 24 decibel slopes, and something much more specific, 1,000, 4,000 with 24 decibel slopes. So it's more demanding. These are the types of BPs, medium BPs, aimed at targeting more precisely zone 2. Okay, zone 2 is a visual summary of a medium BPs for zone 2. And finally, of course, you have different HPs. I said before, you have HP 500, 6 decibel slope, HP 524 decibel slope, and HP 1024 decibel slope. So basically the HP 1024 is just for Gregorian chant. Same idea as for the T programs, F programs. We are going to use Gregorian with HP so that it's more digestible, if I may say, for people, because as you know, Gregorian chant can be very overwhelming. So systematically now, we will use Gregorian either with HP 1000 or HP 500. So this is it. Here's a visual summary of the HP. And here also a very nice slide. Take some time to review this slide. A big summary of the filter settings for the SR programs with all the possibilities. Actually, all the possibilities. Okay, so if I recap, you have 2 types of slopes, 24 decibels per octave, 6 decibels per octave. You have different ranges, as you're going to see, and you have different HPs, 500, either 24 decibels or 6 decibels, and 1024 decibels. Full spectrum in the SR program is never used with pedagogical settings, never ever. It's a bit too violent, if I may say, a bit too demanding. So it's going to be used with softer gatings. Then, the settings of the channels. Let's talk about that. You have 4 contrasts. You remember what a contrast is, of course. The contrast, that's the difference between the setting in channel 1 and the setting in channel 2. So 4 types of contrast. They are given a force. So you have force 1, force 2, force 3, and force 4. Okay? Force 4 being pedagogical settings. So the best thing for you is to see that visually. So what I'm going to do here on my slide is to display successively these 4 contrasts, and you will understand what it means. So this is gating 1, gating 2, gating 3, gating 4. Gating 4 is pedagogical. Okay, once again, backward, gating 4, gating 3, gating 2, gating 1. You see what is happening? Look at what is happening. in the shaded lines here, it's a reference. That's systematically the pedagogical setting here. So shaded, pedagogical. And in bold, you have the real contrast. Okay, so you see, getting 1 here, this is this and that. This is channel 1. And channel 2 is this. So you see it's less demanding and the contrast is not so big. And when we move to getting 2, as you can see, channel 2 doesn't move, but there's an influence of a low range that is getting more and more important, meaning that the emphasis on the vestibular work is getting stronger and stronger. You see, if I move to getting 3, even stronger. And finally, getting 4 once again is pedagogical. Now we have more emphasis on channel 2. So once again, here, getting 1, the softer of all the 4 gatings. Then getting 2, more emphasis on the vestibular work. Getting 3, even more emphasis on the vestibular work. And finally, getting 3, more emphasis now on the cochlear work. Okay? This is the idea. So you understand this idea of progressivity. We are more and more gradual in the SR program in terms of contrast. And you understand why. To have smoother programs and more adapted programs, more gradual programs, quite interesting to play with this parameter of contrast, which is new for you. I know it's new for you because up to now, the only type of contrast you have been acquainted with is the pedagogical contrast, getting 4. But you have a lot of different contrasts in the Tomati's method. Right? It's quite nice to use some of them right from the start in level 1. That's the main idea with the gatings. In the SR program, only the Gregorian and the SMU, slow music, will be set in pedagogical channels. Because with this type of music, if you put a very soft gating, it's, I don't know, you can easily turn people into zombies, or, you know, they can fall into a deep coma and you will never wake them up again. So that's why we don't do that, right? Unless, of course, you don't like the clients, you can do that, but be very cautious about it. Right? So, except for Gregorian and SMU, which are set in pedagogical channel, all the rest is not pedagogical channel. Okay? So it's very soft. By the way, on the program manager now, you have a composition of all the programs, and you have also, of course, the settings of the channels that are given when you go to the program. You have all the composition. It's very nice, as you will see. You have all the details in terms of composition of the programs. You have all the parameters that are displayed. Delay, precession, the channels, the type of filtering, everything is here for you at your disposal. All you have to do is read. Everything is here for you. Now the speed for the SR program, it's very easy. The speed is 10-100. Delay 10, precession 100. You understand why. Once again, these programs are kind of T-ish, if I may say, or a bit F-ish. So that's the idea. You want to have a very moderate, actually slow pace of gating. So as you know, it triggers a relaxing effect through the triggering of a parasympathetic system. Okay. Now there's a protocol, of course. Okay, so the idea is that you should start systematically. You start with the SR0, which is the softest of the programs, and that is the program that puts the strongest emphasis on zone 1. It works on the foundational developmental skills that are necessary for the development of listening. So you work on the foundation, you start with SR0. That's the main idea, okay? And of course, You start with this, and this first program is going to facilitate the practitioner's choice regarding the second program. It can serve as a potential preparation for more demanding programs, meaning stronger exposure to Zone 1 and Zone 2 and Zone 3 according to the goals that will have to be redefined at the beginning of the second program. And as I said before, it's quite interesting. You have profiles of impact on Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. So from a second program on, this profile of impact will be used by the practitioner, by you, as a guideline for choosing the next program. Okay? And this is also the same story. You ask yourself the question, to what extent do I need with this particular client, and according to the aims that have been defined, to what extent do I want to work on Zone 1, on Zone 2, and on Zone 3. Okay? And from this answer, you are going to pick up a profile, meaning a program. It's very simple. There's much more methodology in these programs than in the former ELMA programs. It's much more structured for you. And at the same time, it's much more flexible, as I said, a lot of variations. So you have a very nice tool to work with now. Okay? So here are the three profiles of impact. Impact on Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. So this is SR0 and SR0 no GC. Remember, no GC means that there's no Gregorian chant, and Gregorian chant has been replaced by SMU, SMU. Okay? So you see it's a kind of descending profile. The emphasis has been put on Zone 1. It's normal. Okay. Some emphasis on Zone 2, language communication, this is very important, and less emphasis on arousal. Doesn't mean that it's not arousing. Of course it is arousing, but to a lesser extent. It's less demanding. And here you have an average force of gating. There's an average force of gating because, remember, with the exception of Gregorian chant and SMU that are in force 4, all the rest is not in force 4. So this is the average. Okay? So some recordings are force 1, some recordings are force 2, some recordings are force 3. So if you calculate the average, you get this, 2.8. The maximum being theoretically 4. Okay? If every track is at the maximum, force 4, which is pedagogical, the average will be 4. Okay? So you have here a moderate force of gating. So now you have the profile for SR1, and you can see that you have the same emphasis on Zone 1, but now more emphasis on the Zone 2 communication zone. Okay, let's suppose, I don't know, let's suppose you want to work with a kid that at the same time has a stronger, very serious problems in terms of coordination and posture, but also is delayed in terms of language. Well, this is a very nice program to apply after SR0, a very nice one. Okay. Look at the force of gating. 3, it's a bit more demanding, but not too much. Finally, the profile of impact for SR2, and here more emphasis is put on arousing. So now let's suppose you want to work with a kid that has attentional deficits. Well, you know that maybe he needs to be aroused, but not too much, which is the case of this program because it's moderate. Look at the force of gating. After the SR0, you can switch from SR0 to SR2. Yes, I want to emphasize this point. There's no hierarchy. Okay, so don't be fooled by the number. Okay, so 2, 3, but 3 doesn't mean superior or stronger than 2. Okay, I mean SR2 could have been labeled SR1 and vice versa. Okay, so there's no hierarchy in the programs, and the same principle for the ER program. Okay, you will have a ER0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but ER5 could have been labeled ER3, and ER2 could have been labeled ER4. Okay, so there's no hierarchy in the programs. It depends on your aim. It depends upon one thing, the zones you want to target in priority. That's why the fundamental question is, once again, it's kind of threefold fundamental question. To what extent do I want to work on zone 1? To what extent do I want to work on zone 2? To what extent do I want to work on zone 3? And from the answer of this question, you choose a profile, meaning you choose a program. It's very, very simple. Okay, now ER program, same idea. Okay, so structure of the ER program. Let's talk about the ER programs. So we have the type of music, the type of filters, the type of channels, channel 1, channel 2, the type of speed of gating, and finally the profiles of impact. So the music, it's more simple here because the ER programs are less sensory motor oriented than the SR programs, and as a consequence only a few of them will target zone 1. And unlike the SR programs, the ER programs do not contain marches, and only some of them will contain words. To be more precise, ER0, ER1 and ER5. Okay? So I repeat, no march in the ER program, and only some of them will contain words. Okay. And as for the SR program, of course, in the no GC version, Gregorian chant is replaced by SMU, same idea. So the specific filtering now, we have specific filters in the ER programs. Actually, it's very easy. We have exactly the same 13 types of filtering that you will find in the SR programs, plus some specific filtering only for the ER programs. Okay? So in total, in the ER programs, you have 17 different types of filtering. It's huge. 17 different types of filter. Okay? So as I said, you have the 13 types of filters that you will find in the SR programs, plus you will find for MU HP 1000, 24 decibels, HP 1500, 24 decibels. And believe me, when you try these types of filtering on yourself, you will find that it's much more demanding than the type of filtering HP you have in the MR programs. Okay? So the range of difficulties, if you want, okay, the range of programs in terms of their level of work, to what extent they are demanding, this range is bigger than in the MR programs. So you have HP 1000, HP 1005 with MU, and of course, as you may guess, now you are going to target zone 2 and zone 3, more particularly zone 3. Okay, that's the idea. And also you have for the AR program specific BPs, 3 of them, 1500, 4000, 24 decibels, 1000, 6000, 24 decibels, and 1500, 6000, 24 decibels with MU. The best thing is that you should see the summary visually speaking. So these are the HP for the MU. You see it's very demanding. The slope is 24 decibels, so it's quite drastic. Try yourself through the gauging system. You will understand right away, and you will see that the impact in the high is very big now. Okay, you have big contrast in the high frequencies, so the impact on zone 3 is big. That's exactly the aim. Okay, and these are the specific BPs. 1000, 4000, 24, 24, 1005, 4000, 24, 24. It's more narrow, more demanding. You ask the brain, if I may say, to reorient its attention more precisely on this specific area. Okay, it's zone 2, a part of zone 2, but a part that is very important, that is devoid of the influence of zone 1, that is devoid of the influence of the vestibular zone. That's exactly the aim of these specific BPs. Then you have 1006, 1006,000, 2424. It's a bit higher. There's a slight influence of zone 3. And you have something more narrow, 1005, 6000. Once again, the target is on zone 2 and a bit on zone 3. But you see, the main idea with these 4 BPs is really to target, this is the priority, to strongly target zone 2. Yeah. Without targeting zone 1. This is the idea. It's very demanding. Try on yourself. Try on yourself. You will see it's you get a kind of narrow, more focused sound. Okay, it's more demanding for the ear. So this is the nice slide 2, general summary of the settings. Take some time to study this slide. Everything is here, actually. The type of slopes, the different ranges, the different HPs, 500, 1000, 1500. Okay, so this is a nice summary of everything. Channels, well, here for the ER, that's very, very, very easy because with the exception of some tracks in ER0, all the channels are pedagogical. So it's very easy. The contrast is pedagogical, the classical contrast that you know, the same as for the ELMA programs, exactly the same. It's normal. The ER programs are intended for more, quote, neurotypical population, if I may say. So, of course, the contrast is more demanding now, okay? And as a matter of fact, in the R0 programs, only a few tracks will be endowed with gating force 2 and gating force 3, okay? Just kind of transition to pedagogical settings, just a few tracks. But even in the ER0, you will find pedagogical settings, a lot of them. Just a few of them will not be, a few of these tracks won't be pedagogical settings, okay? Just a transition, actually. So the protocol is very easy, as you may guess. The first program that should be used is the ER0, of course. In the same way as in the VSR programs, the first program to be used is the SR0 here. The first program to be used is the ER0. Okay. Strongest emphasis on zone 1. Once again, works on the foundation, if I may say. It's really for the development of listening skills. And after that, you understand the idea. This program will enable you to unravel, if I may say, what remains to be done and to choose another program. To choose another programs, once again, what do? You ask yourself the threefold fundamental question. To what extent do I want with this client, and according to the aims, to what extent do I want to work on zone 1, on zone 2, and on zone 3? And from the answer to this question, you pick up a profile of impact, meaning a program. It's very easy. Now, regarding the ER, something new compared to the SR, it's that as practitioners level 1, you have a possibility now to change precession. So for the ER program, you can choose between 3 values of precession. You have 3 possibilities. You have precession 100, precession 80, precession 60. It's a big, big leap compared to the ELMA programs, because in the ELMA programs, remember, in the ELMA programs, you would have 2 possibilities, precession 100, precession 60. And we all know, that's for sure, that this transition between 100 and 60 can be a big problem for some kids because the leap is too big. And that's why an intermediate value has been added, precession 80, very nice. So you have now a speed of gating that is going to be more gradual, smoother, and you will be able to switch from 100 to 60 with something in the middle. So of course there's a kind of protocol in the usage of the precession that is very easy to understand, very easy. The first program should be ER0, I said before. ER0 should be applied with precession 100. Okay? Precession 80 can be applied from a second program on if the practitioner estimates that the speed of gating can produce better effects for the client. Otherwise, if you estimate that it's better to remain slow, you will stick to 100. And finally, precession 60 can be applied from a third program on if you estimate that it's better for your client. Otherwise, you stick to precession 80 and even to precession 100. So you see the idea. Over the first three programs, it's not possible to directly switch from precession 100 to precession 60. Okay? Always go through the intermediate value, that is 80. Okay? I recap to make it simple and short. First program, precession 100. Second program, precession 80. Third program, precession 60. Okay. As for the delay, that's very easy. The delay remains at 10. It's very easy. Delay 10. As for the SR program, delay 10. Okay. Now, the profiles of impact on zone 1, zone 2, and zone 3. Same idea as for the SR programs. Okay. Once again, you remember, after the ER0, you ask yourself a threefold question: to what extent with this particular client and according to the aims, to what extent do I need to work on zone 1, on zone 2, on zone 3? And from this answer, you pick up the profile of impact, meaning the profile, meaning the program. Okay, that's very easy. So these are the profiles in question. 6 of them, because we have 6 ER programs. ER0 here, emphasis on zone 1, then on the communication zone, zone 2. But also, you can see that zone 3 is also present. It's kind of arousing. The only thing is the force of gating is not really 4, it's a bit less. So it's kind of slightly softer. So it's a nice program to apply in the first place. Then you have a bunch of profiles. Keep in mind, once again, there's no hierarchy between the profiles. You see, this is ER1, but ER1 could have been labeled ER3, for example. Okay? So don't be fooled by the number. Okay? So ER1 is like left-oriented. You know what it means. Okay? We are here on the left. The emphasis is on the left. Zone 1, zone 2. You want to work on the vestibule and at the same time on language communication, to a lesser extent on arousal, energy. Very nice program. Then you have a program that is more focused on zone 2. Okay? Communication, language. ER3 is something that is now more arousing, emphasis on zone 2 and zone 3. I don't know, for example, a kid that at the same time you want to work with a kid on language and attention, for example. This is a nice program. Now, ER4 is even more arousing. Priority is for attention deficits, or I don't know, some people that experience a big fatigue, for example, deep fatigue. When you want to put some work on the energy, okay, stimulations, you can use these programs, and to a lesser extent you want also to work on communication. It's quite nice. And finally, this one, extremes, you see, emphasis on zone 1 and zone 3, and lesser extent on zone 2. You want to work on the body sphere, coordination, posture, tone, and at the same time you want to give energy, arousal. This is a nice one. Is it possible to switch, to make a transition from the SR family to the ER family? Yes, of course, it is possible. You start with an ER because your client is weak. You work with vulnerable people, and then of course your client is going to progress, and now you want something more demanding. You can switch to ER. So this is a protocol. You're going to switch after a minimum of 2 SR programs, meaning SR0 plus another one. Because this is the idea. If you start with SR0, is that by definition your client is weak, is vulnerable. So 1 SR is probably maybe not enough. So you want to, you see, anchor the effect, strengthen the effect. So that's why after the SR0, you're going to work with another SR, and then maybe you will be able to switch to ER. Okay. So after a minimum of 2 SR programs, you can switch to the ER family. And guess what? Of course, what is the first program you are going to apply? That's the ER0, of course. You're going to start with ER0. Okay? To help you in this choice, you can use the new TED, the SR part of the new TED when it's ready in 2026 or 27 maybe, depends on the weather in Paris. So you can use this TED new version to help you, and you have a choice between 2 criteria. Number one, if you have a total score at the TED that is less than 44, 1/3, okay, of items quoted between 4 and 10, okay. So in that case, you say you know for sure that okay, this kid doesn't present big delays, big sensory motor issues, things like this. So okay, now you know that you can switch to ER. Second criteria, the total score is more than 44, but there's a drastic decrease of items quoted between 4 and 10, meaning that the kid has enormously progressed, okay? So if there is at least a 50% decrease of items, of critical items, meaning quoted between 4 and 10, in that case, you can say to yourself, okay, now it's time to switch to something more demanding, and in that case, you go to ER. Yes, as a side note, in the TED, each item will be quoted between 0, not at all, and 10 every time, constantly, okay? So this is very nice because in the idea, you will be able to smoothly move a cursor like this, okay, to quote more precisely each item. This is the main idea. That's why it's quoted between 0 and 10, okay? And in the criteria, as you can see, we choose quotation between 4 and 10 because the idea is that from 4 and above, it's considered as something important. Can you systematically switch to all, if you come from SR, the kid is weak and things like this, can you switch to all the ER? Well, the idea is that you should be maybe like cautious about that and maybe avoid some of the ER programs that are endowed with a lot of targeting on zone 3, so a lot of higher frequencies, a lot of HPs, high pass filtered music, okay? Because you know that in some cases maybe you can trigger a seizure, maybe, okay? It's not at all systematic, but you want to avoid that. So that's why when you switch to ER, the suggestion is that you should avoid ER3 and ER4 because look at the profile of ER3, ER4, you will understand, okay, it's very loaded in high frequencies, that's why. So in that case, if you come from SR, you pick up ER, you're going to choose ER0, of course, and then ER1, ER2, or ER5. Okay, so you have four possibilities, which is good. Okay. Now you have switched to ER. Can you come back to SR? Of course. Okay, it's always possible to switch from ER to SR if you think that a more moderate and more sensory motor oriented program is better for your client. Also, it's not a one-way street. You can always come back to something less demanding. Okay? I repeat myself, no hierarchy in the program, there's no superiority of one program over another one. It all depends on the goals that have been established. Okay? A few words about the organization. Once again, remember, systematically in each program, 14 days, 2 weeks. Okay? 56 tracks, because there's 14 days, and every day there are 4 tracks. Okay? So 4 multiplied by 14 equals 56. Okay? So 56 tracks. But remember, you can adjust the duration of a track. Okay? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Okay? So it's very nice because now you don't have any more to ask yourself something like this. Yes, but if I do just 1 hour with a kid, how do I proceed? For example, with an F program, should I do like track 1, track 2, and then follow with track 3, track 4, whatever? It's finished. Okay, it's quite interesting because what changes is the time scale, if I may say. But the global structure of a program is preserved. It's already the same. So it's much more simple like this. This is a slide that gives you, in terms of organization, the quantum of stimulation, if I may say, according to the age. So 2-year-old, you're going to pick up 10 minutes track. Okay? The time, the window is 10 minutes. The format is 10 minutes. So 4 times 10 minutes equals 40 minutes a day. 40 minutes a day, you have 14 days, gives you something like 9 hours and something, 9 hours and 20 minutes per program. It sounds very short, but it's not because your kid is 2 years old. So for him, it can be demanding, okay? A program that is around 10 hours, let's say, okay? 3 years old, the track now can be 15 minutes long. So it gives you 1 hour a day, meaning in total 14 hours. And then from 4 years old and above, you are going to pick up 20 minutes track, meaning 1 hour and 20 minutes a day, a bit less than 1 hour and a half. In total, you're going to get 18 hours for a program. That's the main idea. Now, of course, you can add shades of gray in between. You understand why? Because this is the case when your track duration is always the same. Okay, within the same day, it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But of course, you can add some shades. Now, let's suppose, for example, your kid is 2 years and 6 months, 2 years and a half. So in between 2 and 3. What you can do is alternate, is increment the duration. So you are going to alternate between 10 minutes track and 15 minutes track within the same day. You do, for example, day 1, you do like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and so forth for all of your places. You see, so you have a lot of shades in between, but enable you to increment, to be more gradual in the time of exposure. So this is just the framework, okay? 2 years old, 10 minutes track, 3 years old, 15 minutes, 4 years old and above, 20 minutes, but of course you can be more subtle than that. You can also see that there's no more 30 minutes track, okay? No, finished. It's not for you. I'm sorry, my friends. You will have to wait later. Be consultant. In that case, you will be maybe able, you have a listening test at your disposal, you are experienced, and now you can say, okay, this client needs more stimulation. But keep in mind, the big problem is overstimulation. Recordings are endowed with a lot of energy. We know now for sure, that an exposure of about 1 hour and a half, a bit less, is quite sufficient for most people. So no problem with that, okay? And that's it. Then yes, of course, you have the organization in terms of break, but this you know, this is not new because it's the same idea as for the VMR programs, between the first program, the second program, you're going to have a break of around 1 month, but it can be 1 month and a half. A big parameter in the equation is the use of the forebrain. If the client uses the forebrain in between to maintain, which is key, of course you can lengthen the duration of the break. If he doesn't, for some reason, use the forebrain, the idea is to stick to this duration of break 1 month, 1 month and a half. Okay, between the second and third program, you can lengthen the break. Okay, it can be 2 months, 2 months and a half. Let's say between 1 month and a half and 2 months and a half. Same idea. If your client uses the forebrain to maintain, you can easily go to 2 months break, 2 months and a half, even 3 months break actually. Because you know he maintains, so he strengthens the connection that has been achieved in his brain. Okay, it's basic principle of neuroplasticity. Now, if for some reason he hasn't used the forebrain, okay, it's better to stick to shorter breaks. This is the main idea, but this is something that you saw in the ELMA program, so the same idea. Well, I think it's all for that. Okay, so if I just give you a short recap, the main idea is that the guideline now is the notion of listening, zones of listening. It's your guideline, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Okay, you're going to pick up a program according to your question. To what extent do I want to work on zone 2, on zone 1, zone 2, zone 3? But to understand that, you have to understand the impact of the recordings on each zone. And to understand that, you have to understand, of course, you have to know the different types of filters used in the programs, and particularly the BPs, the band pass. Okay? Because the idea of the BPs is precisely to target more specifically such and such zone. Okay? For example, 504,000 targets zone 2. Okay? So take some time on these notions. Take some time on the zones of listening to integrate that, and take some time on the ideas of BP, specific BPs. And BP is two things, huh? It's a range and the slope. Okay? Take some time and experience on yourself. If you don't do that, you don't know what you're talking about. These programs are much richer, but definitely much easier to integrate because they are much more structured, because they are underpinned by this idea of zones of listening that serves as a guideline. So it's very good for you. So that's all. Have a good work and good luck for the rest. And see you